Hey everyone, it's Enigma here with EJE TV, and in today's video I'm going to try and attempt to talk about everything you would need to know about crafting your gear in No Rest for the Wicked. Now we are going to talk about a multitude of different things, so if you are looking for something specific, you can go ahead and check the timestamps down below. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is your different rarity types of gear. First one being your white or common items. They are basically the first entry level of items that you can find, and they come with no enchantments and empty gem slots, or at least the weapons will come with at least one rune that's specific towards that weapon type. But other than that, they're pretty basic, as you would assume. And then the next level up would be your blue, which is your rare or magic, however you want to assign it. And this one will have one empty gem slot and a maximum of 3 different enchantments. Now, some might come with 2, some might come with 1. You might pick up items that have all 3, but it'll be completely random with the enchantments. And then, like I said, 1 empty gem slot. And then the next level up above that will be your purple items, which are your plagued items. And these are your top tier besides legendary and masterworked items, which we will get more into masterworked items later on in this video. But purple, you can make any item a purple item, which is plagued, and those will have the same 1 empty gem slot, as well as up to 5 enchantments, one of them being a negative enchantment. And we can get a little bit more into that later on when I specifically talk about the enchantments. And then the last rarity that's found in the game is your gold, which is your legendary or unique items. And those are going to have fixed enchantments that are specific towards that actual weapon. I don't think I have found every legendary yet. Well, I know I haven't, so I haven't quite looked at all of the enchantments. Yeah, let me know down in the comments below what the maximum enchantments are on your legendary. So, like I said, this one has 4, but most of the ones that I've seen have 3, unless it has a negative on it as well. Alrighty, so those are your different rarity types. Now, the next thing I want to go talk about is your enchantments and how to enchant. So let's go ahead and hop over to Eleanor, which is the lady that does all of that for you. Alrighty, we are now in Eleanor's shop, which I have her building maxed out to level 3. And we can go ahead and talk to her here. You know, pull you up with this menu here, and you can head over to enchant. She's got a couple different things that you can do that we're going to talk about here, but she's very useful. Now, one thing I want to mention is I have all of these items here after doing a couple of farming runs, and so this is kind of my routine after I do farming, and then I basically fill up my inventory. I'll come straight over to Eleanor here, and the first thing I do is go to the enchant tab, and I will enchant all of my normal or white items, because it will basically give you a 50-50 shot on turning it into a blue or a purple. So yeah, there's no deterministic way to do that. Right now it's a 50-50 with the current state of the game, and so it costs 50 bronze coins for each item to be able to enchant. And so I'm going to enchant all of these real quick. And as you can see, we got pretty good RNG right there in the beginning, but the next item turned blue. And so this is basically what I come in and do every time. And the last one here. And so yeah, there we go. Let's check our inventory real quick. So it looked like pretty good odds, I would say. But yeah, it's a 50-50 shot for each item that you try to enchant. And then for me personally, I don't hold on to blue items anymore. If you're someone that wants a build with blue specific items, you can let me know down in the comments below and I can definitely do that for you. But I'm basically an endgame and I primarily only ever keep and use purple items just because they carry better enchantments and they allow you to have more enchantments. So it's more for your players who have been playing longer to be able to do these end game mechanics and sort of theory craft with different builds and stuff. But blue items, for the most part, I've seen a lot of people talk about how they are perfectly fine with using a really good blue item, and I did that in the beginning part of me playing this game. It pretty much carried me all the way through the main story of the game, but once I got into endgame, I started messing around with your plagued items. But you would just need to have experience playing the game just to be able to understand how to negate some of the negatives with the positives. So it can look a little intimidating to newer players, but yeah, stick around with most of the blue items as all of the enchantments that you can put on here are going to be positives with no downsides, and they still carry an empty gem slot. So, and we'll talk about gems here in a little bit. But yeah, for me, I basically sell all of mine just because this is one of the main ways that I make money here in the game. So like I said, with all my white or normal items, I enchant them for 50 bronze coins each, and then all of the blue ones I end up selling. All right, so let's stick with talking about the enchantments here for a little bit. The next thing I want to mention or talk about is your Fallen Embers. So I would recommend for those of you who are playing the game, who are newer to the game, keep as many as these as possible. And you don't want to get rid of these ever. They're kind of a rarer item to come by, but once you get some farming methods down, you can acquire quite a bit to be able to use. But yeah, your Fallen Embers, basically you would hover over the item, and for me I would hit Y to use it, and then it will give me the option of all of the items that I can use this Fallen Ember on. And this is the crafting material that you need to use to add or re-roll enchantments. So what I'm going to do is basically, we can use this item for an example. I will select this item and then see right here, it moves me over and I have 4 out of 5 enchantments. Now I can use one of these embers to basically add my 5th enchantment, which we will do now. And so there we go, we added our 5th enchantment. And now what you can do, instead of enchanting, is re-roll the enchantment that you want. And I have a little cheat sheet that I'm going to bring up here in just a second, so you can have a better idea of understanding how these enchantments are grouped. I found this Excel sheet that someone made on a Reddit post, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now, I'm just going to do a random one because I don't use this armor. But basically, if you don't want one of these specific stats, you can hover over the one that you don't want and basically use your Fallen Ember on it again. And then it will re-roll it for you to give you a completely different one. Now, the yellow numbers on there are your max percentage that you can get for that specific stat. So if you see a yellow number roll, that's usually pretty good, unless it's on a stat that you basically don't want. And so all of this is random RNG. But like I said, there's a little sheet that we can go ahead and pull up right now to talk about. So yeah, this is your basically enchantment cheat sheet is what I'm calling it. And I will have this linked down in the description below for you to use. Now, this was a sheet that someone made. Like I said, I found it on a Reddit post. Shout out to you for the one who originally created this. But it basically shows you all of the enchantments that you can get on a specific item and how they are grouped together. So let's go ahead and explain that really quick. And it also breaks it down for your magical blue items. And then down here, it categorizes it by your plagued downsides. And then I believe, did we pass it already? Yeah, your plagued enchantments here. So you have your blue items, plagued enchantments and then your plagued downsides, which are the red negative stats on your plagued items. And so basically how this works, let me go to an easier one that we can see. So this is on your plagued shield. So that would be a purple shield item. And these are all of the current enchantments that you can roll on that. Now, Group A, you can only have one of those. Same for Group C, same for Group D, Group H, and so on. And so basically, to not waste your Fallen Embers, if you already have an enchantment that you want that's in Group A, let's say for example, you cannot get another enchantment from that same group on that item. That was something that you don't really learn or understand in the game unless you do a little research or you watch other content creators to be able to figure that out, because I've seen where some people were just wasting a bunch of those Fallen Embers trying to get a specific stat to roll, and it wouldn't ever roll it because it was already in that same category of a different enchantment that they had on that item. So yeah, this is a really good cheat sheet. It also allows you to get an overview of everything that you can get on that specific item. And for me, it really kind of allows me to go through and sort of like theory craft a future build that I want to do and what kind of stats that I'm actually looking for on that actual item. So yeah, your enchantment cheat sheet. Like I said, I will have this down in the description below for you to be able to use, and I would highly recommend that you use it because it's one of the more important pieces of knowledge on this game. Alrighty, I think we covered everything you would need to know about enchantments and enchanting your items. And so the next thing we should talk about is your gems. Now, these are all of the gems I have after doing a bunch of farming for them, which they just recently increased the drop rate for these gems because whenever I initially started playing this in the Breach update, the gems were really hard to come by, but since then they have boosted the drop rate for these, which is nice because, yeah, like I said, they were kind of hard to come by before, and you basically had items with no gems put into them for the exact ones that you wanted. And so I think I have all of the gems that you can get in the game. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe if someone knows, let me know down in the comments below. But since I'm getting duplicates of all of these now, I would assume these are all the gems currently in the game. And I would assume that they're going to add more in the future. So, but yeah, each gem will have a different basically stat that they will add to your item. And so we're not going to go ahead and cover each specific one, but one thing that I do want to point out is, as you can see, some of the stats are either purple or blue, and so it categorizes based on where you put this gem. So for example, if you were to put this chipped sapphire on a weapon, it would add cold damage infusion. And then if you were to put it on a shield, it would deal 5 to 15%. And then same with the offhand item, which is like your secondary item that you could hold, basically like a different type of weapon or bow or something like that. It would also add cold damage infusion. On your armor, cold resistance, helmet, frost buildup, pants, cold resistance, gloves, frost buildup. So basically what I'm trying to emphasize here is pay attention to what each gem will do differently for each item. And another thing that's very important to pay attention to is, as you can see with the chipped jade, it adds the same stat to every piece of gear that you can wear. However, if you were to slot this onto your gloves, because it's purple, that means it would give you a higher total percentage. So as you can see there on the pants, it would range from 4 to 12%, but if you were to slot it specifically on your gloves, it's increased by 6% to 20%. So that's something very important to pay attention to as well. And those percentages are RNG, so it's going to be random. Currently also, one of the downsides in this game is that if you were to put a gem into an item, you cannot remove it. So once you choose to put that gem into that specific item, you will not be able to remove it. Now, I have heard Thomas Mahler, which is the CEO and game director of No Rest for the Wicked, they're already talking about being able to give us the option to be able to remove the gem. That way we could either slot a different one in, or yeah, basically just have the option to be able to remove it in case we accidentally slot it or want to change it up, or mess around with it a bit, which really helps with people who like to theory craft. All right, so the last thing we should talk about with gems is your ability to infuse them into a normal item. So I went ahead and got these gloves here. As you can see, it's a white common item, and it has those 4 empty gem slots. And this is how you're able to masterwork an item. So technically a 5th item rarity type in the game, if you want to call it that. But basically you would go talk to Eleanor, go to the Infuse tab, select the item that you would want, and now it'll give you all of the options for you to slot a gem into these empty gem slots. And let's go ahead and do this now, just for an example. All right, so we added a couple of gems into these gloves, and I'm going to add this last one here, but I just wanted to emphasize, whenever you choose the gem that you're about to slot into this, it will basically say that it's permanent, and are you okay with doing that? So I'm going to go ahead and hit yes, and there we go. We just added our 4th gem to our common item, and it changed it to a masterworked item, which changed it into like a light gold haze item. So it basically separates the color from your stronger gold legendary items, as you can see the color down here. But yeah, as you can tell, we got one of the gems that we slotted as a max percentage, but like I said, all of these are random. Now, one of the things that you can do with this is if you go over to enchant, you can still enchant this item with a 50-50 shot at turning it blue or purple. But if you have 4 gems slotted into this item already and you want to enchant it, it's basically going to pop up with this notice here that says, are you sure you want to enchant? Doing this will remove your last 3 gem slots once evoked, and it cannot be reversed. So basically, if I was to enchant this, the only gem that would stay would be that first stamina recovery, increased by 10%. And the other 3 are basically going to disappear and turn into actual enchantments. So we can go ahead and do that now, just to show you the example. We're going to hit yes. And there you go. I got kind of lucky and it turned it into a purple item. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind as well. If you plan to enchant a masterworked item in the future, just remember that first gem that you choose to slot into that item will be the one that remains if you decide to enchant it. And so now we got the plagued item, and it turned those gems into 3 enchantments. And now if we wanted to, we could go back and use our Fallen Ember on that item, and we could add enchantments if we wanted, but I'm not gonna go ahead and do that right now because I would like to save some of my Fallen Embers for different things. There we go. I think that's everything that you need to know about gems. And so the next thing we're gonna talk about is runes, which is also here at Eleanor as well. So now we can go over here to rune, and it will pop up with all of the items that you're able to add runes to. Now, runes are those slots up there with X, B, Y, and A. So you got Plague Breath on this item, as well as Plague Nova. And those are your runes. They're sort of like spells or special attacks that you can do, and it's only on your weapons. So this does not pertain to armor. So only weapons can have runes. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what you can do with these. Now, if you select the item, you'll basically be able to read a short little description of what the rune does. One thing that I found annoying is that this is the only area that you can actually see a little description of what the rune will actually do. I kind of wished that if we were to go to our normal menu here and you went to a weapon, that there would be some sort of inspect item option to where we could hover over that rune and we could also see what it would do. Hopefully that's something they add into the future, but as of right now, you can only see it if you go over here, hit rune, click on the item, and then you can see what it does. Now, there's a couple things that you can do with runes. You can add a rune, of course, with an empty slot, and over there underneath my camera will be all of the runes that you currently have in your possession. And so you could basically hit this to be able to add a rune, and you can assign it to the specific button that you want. But you could also extract a rune and destroy a rune. Now there's some very important things that you need to know about doing these two options. If you want to extract the rune, which basically means take the rune out of the item and keep it as a rune to put into a different weapon, first it will cost you 85 bronze coins, as you can see there. But if you hit the extract option, it's going to pop up with this notice and say, extract lightning storm from Amber Husk. This will destroy the weapon. Now, I have done this before accidentally when I first started playing this game on a weapon that I was actually using because I was just basically messing around with the mechanics, and yeah, I accidentally extracted the rune and it destroyed that weapon that I was using. So be very careful with that, and just know that if you want to take the rune out to be able to keep it and use it into something else, it will destroy that current weapon that it's on. Now let's say if you have a weapon that has all 4 rune slots filled, and then you want to be able to remove or take away one of the rune slots and add a different rune into it, then you would want to use the destroy option. If you destroy it, you will no longer be able to keep that specific rune. And it also costs 85 bronze coins. So it basically says if you just choose that option, it will ask if you want to remove the lightning storm from Amber Husk. This is permanent, and the rune itself will be destroyed, not the weapon. 2 very important distinctions there. So I hope I explained that basically as best I can. If you want to swap a rune out, you would have to destroy it, can't keep it, and it won't destroy the weapon. If you want to extract the rune, so keep the rune for yourself, but destroy the weapon, then you would choose the extract option. So yes, hopefully I emphasized those 2 different things well enough for you. But yeah, so I mean, we could put a rune here. We'll just choose Pulse of Health. I'm not going to use this weapon, but to add a rune basically costs 85 bronze. So that's basically what your currency is used for, is to do everything with your different vendors within the game and buy different items and whatnot. Put a rune into that empty slot. It's basically going to pop up with another notice saying this is permanent and the rune cannot be extracted without destroying the weapon. So they give you plenty of notices for this, but if you're just trying to like rush through it and you don't really understand how it works, you can definitely accidentally put the wrong rune into an item, and then if you want to try to pull it back out, you can accidentally delete the item. So yeah, but let's just go ahead and do it again. Destroying the rune will empty out this slot, which let's go ahead and do that real quick. So there we go, we destroyed the rune and it didn't destroy the weapon, but now you no longer have that rune. Now if I want to extract it, which we can do as well, it will choose extract, and now we will destroy the weapon but take the rune. So yes, it just destroyed my weapon there, but if we go to our item slot, we have now extracted Lightning Leap from that wand. So hopefully that kind of showed the example a little bit better rather than me just telling you. I believe that's everything we need to talk about with runes. The next thing we need to talk about is how to level up your armor and how to level up your Weapons. So let's go ahead and head on over to do that. Alrighty, we are over here about to talk to Fillmore.
Nothing sings like steel.
This is your blacksmith in the game. So if you were to talk to him, he has a couple different options for you here. But if you were to go over to upgrade, this is how you can level up a weapon. The current max level for items in this game is 16, so I would assume hopefully in future updates that this continues to be increased, but as of right now 16 is the max level. But basically this item is at level 12, and once the highest you can go without doing endgame mechanics is level 12. Once you get the item to level 12 and you want to upgrade it to level 13, as you can see down there at the bottom of the weapon with the green text where it says crafting requirements, you will now need torn sinew and various other pestilence ingredients, which are basically from endgame mechanics. So that's just a little piece of knowledge for you there. But yes, this is where you can upgrade different weapons, and basically it has a cost as well. So if you want to upgrade this, it requires those crafting material. Plus, it's going to cost me 4 silver to be able to upgrade this weapon to level 13. So yeah, different items, depending on what level the item is, will cost you different materials. So like this is weapon shards and pine planks, and this is like weapon shard, iron ingots. So yeah, different materials. But for weapons, it will always require a weapon shard as well as the other remaining crafting materials that you would need. That's basically it with upgrading a weapon. Now the other thing you can do over at Fillmore, which is crafting a specific weapon. So if you acquire different blueprints throughout the game, either by random drops or you can buy them from different vendors throughout the city, you can learn the recipe and it will drop your blueprint in here at the anvil. So there's different things you can craft, like tools, specific tools that you have, different pieces of armor, and different weapon types. That's pretty cool as well. Now let's go head on over and talk to 2 ladies who tailor all of your armor. Alrighty, so we are over here at Mira and Mary. They are the 2 ladies who are basically your tailors. But if you talk to them, this is where you can upgrade your armor pieces. So as you can see now, our gloves is level 12, and now at the bottom you will need armor shards as well as the other corresponding crafting materials. Yeah, that's where you do your armor at these 2 ladies, and then if you want to upgrade your weapons, it's over there at Fillmore, and everything will have a cost, of course, not only in currency but crafting materials. Now they also have a little crafting bench over here where you can basically craft specific armor pieces. These are blueprints as well, so you always have to learn the recipe or blueprint for the items that you specifically want to craft. And each vendor will also have different items that you can buy, and sometimes they can sell blueprints, which are the patterns. So these are what the sheets look like in case you're wondering about those. And alright, I think that's everything you need to know about leveling up your gear. And I believe the last thing we need to talk about is exalting your gear, which is cream of the crop, basically as endgame as you can get with min-maxing your build. So let's go ahead and head up to the top of the Rookery Tower where we can do that. Alrighty, so we made it up to the very top of the tower in Sacrament, which is the city here, and we are going to speak to the Watcher, which is the old man that you talked to very early on in the story. And so we will go down to Exalt Items, and this is where we basically have the option to max out a percentage. If you hover over an item with your gems and specific enchantments that you have, it shows you the difference of what the normal item is at right now and where it could be by exalting it. Now this is done by individual stats, so if you click on here, it will now give you the option to hover over these specific stats, and you can also max the percentage of the gem that you also slot into your item. And this can be done on your armor as well as weapons. So like I said, this is very much the end game goal for you to min-max your items out once you have the specific stat that you want on it. I would not recommend to exalt your items unless it's completely built out the way that you want to do. We can go ahead and use this one for an example because this is a cloth body armor that I am trying to build into, and one of the stats that I do want is this first one here. And as you can see, it will cost 1 torn marrow, which is a pestilence endgame farming material. And if you look over on the exalted item side at the very bottom, when it says push A for exalt, it shows you the materials needed to do that. And if you hover over different stats might require different or more additional endgame farming material. And so yeah, that's something to look out for as well. Like on this one, it's 9% and the max is 10%, which is not that big of a difference. So like for example, if I wanted to go from 29% to 50% being the max, it would cost me a lot more material to do that. And so yeah, that's basically how you exalt an item. And once you fully exalt the item, basically means you have the item completely min-maxed out like this one, whereas you can see all of my stats on this item are yellow maxed out percentages. You also get additional stat boosts with that item, which we can go get an example for again over here at the Watcher. As you can see on the item over there on the exalted side, once it's fully exalted, the green numbers that go up will be the additional stat boosts that you will get once the item is fully exalted. So just keep in mind, if you do exalt an item, it doesn't do all of these stats at one time. You have to go in and do them individually, which is kind of nice because let's say some of these I don't want on this item, so I'm gonna have to re-roll them with my Fallen Embers. But if I have a stat like this one, for instance, that I know I'm gonna keep on the item, I can go ahead and max it out to be able to get those benefits on the item, even though it's not fully exalted. I hope that explained it well enough. One thing I can show you is the different endgame farming materials to look out for. Alrighty, we are back in my main house, and these are 2 out of the 3 endgame materials that you would need for exalting your items. So I have the torn marrow, and then your torn sinew, and then the third one would be called your torn husk, which in my experience and from what I've seen from other players that I've talked to, the torn husks seem to be the more rare one to find or get. I've gotten them before, but I've basically used them all because all of the current gear I use, other than the pants, are all exalted. So yeah, I've used a ton of endgame material for me to be able to exalt all of my current items that I use. One other thing that I should point out with your torn endgame materials is that you can also trade these in up at the Watcher for different materials. So let's go ahead and head back up on the top of the tower and show you how to do that. Alright, so we're back here at the Watcher, and the other option that he has is your trade menu. So if you hit trade, these are the other items. Oh, I guess there's 4 endgame materials. You got torn effigy, torn marrow, and then torn husk, as well as your torn sinew. So all of your torn items are going to be your endgame materials that you would need. But basically, like for me, I don't have any torn husks. So if I wanted to trade in 3 torn marrows for 1 husk, I can do that. And as you can see, if I wanted more, it shows you that 3 torn marrow for 1 torn husk, and then if I wanted 2 torn husk, it would cost me 6 torn marrow. So that's basically how the trade system works, and I can't even go up in value more than 2 basically because I don't have enough torn marrow to be able to do that. So, which is kind of nice. It limits you to what you're able to trade your items for. The reason why you would want to do something like that is because, like I said, your torn marrow and your torn sinews are the most common or more plentiful item that you can get more often, so they give you the option for you to be able to come up here and trade them in. So torn sinew, I would say, are the most common, the ones that you get the most. Then it would be torn marrow, and then torn husk, and then torn effigy. Looks like it's the hardest item to get, and I don't think I've ever actually gotten one of these before, nor do I know what this is actually used for. I don't think I've seen this in the trade menu before for me personally, but yeah, for those of you who are more veteran players, maybe y'all could let me know down in the comments below, as well as help anyone else who is watching this video. But yeah, as you can tell, it would take one of each material to basically trade it in for one torn effigy. That's the trade system for in-game materials, which you need in-game materials to exalt your items. Overall, I think the crafting system is very well done in this game. You've got your RNG options to be able to roll different stats. You got the different rarity types, as well as giving you the option to exalt items to max out your percentages, which is very nice. And then, like we did on the gloves that we now have enchanted into a plague item, if you were to put all gems into the empty slots on a white item, it gives you sort of a more deterministic way of being able to craft an item specifically the way that you want, which I'm been tempted to basically build a whole build with normal items and masterwork them all by slotting in specific gems that I want to use for that. And like I said, hopefully in the future we get a ton more different gem options to be able to give us more deterministic ways to be able to basically build our own build the exact way that we would want it to be. Hopefully I did cover everything. Like I said, for those of you who are veteran players, if you notice that I missed anything or want to be able to help out other people down in the comments below, don't be afraid to leave a comment. I have about 90 hours into this game. I've farmed quite a bit. I've farmed the Crucible, farmed Pestilence, which is endgame modes. It's one of the best games that I've played in a really, really long time. I absolutely love it, and it's still in early access, which is kind of crazy because apparently to the devs, they say this is roughly about 30% of the total game, which is really exciting because I just know in the future to come with this game, this is gonna turn out to be one of the best ARPGs, if not best overall games that I've ever played. Big fan of the devs, big fan of the studio. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope this helped you out on being able to understand the crafting mechanics a lot better. And if there's any other video topics that you want me to cover, leave those down in the comments below and give this video a like. That way I know you appreciated it, and I will continue to create more videos. I also live stream right here on YouTube as well as Twitch. We've been playing a lot of No Rest for the Wicked. And so if you want to watch me live and kind of get a better idea of how I do things, how I farm, and chat with me, ask me questions, I'm more than happy to help. And so I hope to see you in there. I will see you guys in the next video or live stream. Peace.